Understanding interval notation. Interval notation is an important concept in college algebra, and it comes up a lot throughout this course. It's extremely important that you understand how to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just a basic compound inequality. Okay, I have the inequality x is greater than 9 or x is less than or equal to -1. This is called a compound inequality. And what I did was I graphed it on a number line so you can see how the solution would look on a number line. -1, of course, is smaller, so it would come first, and then there's my 9. This is a closed circle because of this equal sign here. That means it's included. And then the 9 has an open circle because there's no equal sign here. And since this is less than, you're going to shade this way to the left. And since this is greater than, you shade to the right, which is positive. Now, once you get this on a number line, it's easier to translate the number line into interval notation. You don't have to graph every single one, but it does help to see the visual. When you're drawing interval notation, when you're writing interval notation, you always start from the left and go to the right. So this arrow indicates that it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which means I'm going off to -infinity. That's the smallest I can possibly get. And then I'm coming all the way up until -1. And then I stop because I have this gap here. Now, because this is an included point, you would represent this with a bracket. That tells you that that 1 is part of your solution. The gap is represented by this U, which means union. It's another symbol for the OR for a compound inequality. And then we're going to start at the 9. Now, the 9 is not part of your solution. The way you represent that is by using a parenthesis. That symbolizes your open circle. And then I'm getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm getting larger and larger and larger. So I'm going off to +infinity. So this would be my solution for a problem that would look like this, if you end up with an answer that looked like this. Okay, let me give you another example. This is another type of compound inequality. However, this one's called an AND compound inequality. I call it the squished together inequality because there's not two different parts. It's all crammed together. When you're drawing or when you're writing one like this, it does help definitely to draw a graph so you can see the difference between this graph and the last one we did. -5 is a smaller number, 4 is the larger number. Now, what this is telling you is that x is stuck between these two numbers. This one being included, so I have a closed circle. This one not included, so I have an open. And if x is between these two numbers, I would shade in the middle. So it's the entire opposite of the last example that we did. When you're writing this one in interval notation, you will not involve infinity or -infinity at all, because you're not going and getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're not going to be getting larger and larger and larger. You're just stuck in between these two numbers. So the way you write this one in interval notation, you start at the number, which is -5, and this one is included, so we're going to use a bracket, and you go to 4, which is not included, so we use a parenthesis. It is possible that sometimes you'll have interval notation that looks like an ordered pair. If this had been an open circle, it would be parenthesis -5, 4, and it would look just like an ordered pair, but it's actually not. So there's a big difference between these two problems. Make sure you understand there's a huge difference between interval notation and set notation. Set notation is much different. If these problems asked you for set notation, I'm going to go back to the first example. If I wanted this in set notation, I would put the braces, use the variable in question, which in this case is an x, and use this little bar, and it's read such that, and then you just type in your answer. So it would be x is less than or equal to -1, or x is greater than 9, and then you close your brackets. Now, looks a little different. You have the bar in there, and you actually just rewrite your solution. Notice I put the smallest part first when you're writing set notation. You want to make sure you have your smaller part first. So that's the difference between interval notation and set notation for the same problem. Okay, let's go down here. This is interval notation. Set notation for this one, your little braces, the x and the bar, and then you copy your original problem, which was your answer, and then close your braces. So basically with set notation, you're just repeating your answer. You're not really writing it in a fancy way. But there's a huge difference between these two notations that you have to feel very comfortable with. I hope this helps with interval notation. I hope you have a little more time to look over this and study it. We'll be doing a lot more in the following videos, because every problem that we do with inequalities, I'm going to write both answers in interval notation and in set notation so you guys can get some extra practice.